The slopes and peaks of the Caucasus Mountains make a backcloth to one of the world's loveliest playgrounds, the eastern shore of the Black Sea. Sochi, almost entirely built since the 1917 revolution, is the Soviet Union's best and biggest holiday resort. It is a beautiful place. I have never before seen a city with so many trees. Sochi's streets and the big sanatoria and holiday homes and the slopes are embowered in green. But the most notable thing about this place to the foreign visitor with unhappy memories of other holiday seafronts is that elegance and dignity are almost unmarred in all Sochi's many miles by anything tawdry or vulgar. This has been possible because Sochi belongs, of course, to the state, and because everything here has been planned, including the holidaymakers. These are picked people. Here, as in every resort, the trade unions own or control almost all the accommodation: sanatoria, holiday homes, boarding houses, holiday camps. Only the hotels are outside union control, and they could take only a modest proportion of the 1,800,000 people who came here last year. Most of these people, therefore, have been selected by the Trade Union Council, acting through local union branches or factory committees. Before considering why they have been selected for this most popular resort, let us consider what kind of holiday they enjoy. It is a good and liberal holiday. Like all industrial and office workers in Russia, they get 24 days leave on full pay. These workers get, in addition, cheap and often heavily subsidized accommodation. And they needn't worry about the kids. The state takes care of them. Most Soviet mums and dads go away by themselves, while their children go to a kindergarten or factory holiday camp, or to a young pioneers camp like this. And for young pioneers on holiday, this is how every day begins. At this moment, in every holiday resort, young bodies move to commands. And grown-up bodies too. In purposeful Russia, holidays have a purpose other than pleasure: restoring health, raising fitness. These are sanatorium guests, sent here, I'm told, for medical reasons. Like many resorts, Sochi is a spa. And so much emphasis is put on holidays as preventive medicine that visitors staying in boarding houses, the majority, must get a health check-up too. Sochi has 78 holiday homes and 52 sanatoria, which between them took 800,000 visitors last year. Some sanatoria are restricted to workers in specific industries or to special kinds of people. This is a defense ministry sanatorium. There's one here for Communist Party members, the filtered elite of Soviet society. This is a typical big general sanatorium. It was originally built for miners, but now houses a holiday cross-section of Soviet society below the elite. 70 in every 100 here are workers. Soviet authorities still have a Victorian belief in the curative virtues of spa waters. Water massage is prescribed by the sanatorium doctors for slimming, and surprisingly for digestive disorders. For insomnia, the steady rhythm of electrical pulses. In this sanatorium, a staff of 220 look after 400 visitors. An expensive place, but not for them. Taking the highest of conflicting figures given to me, a married couple paying the full cost can stay in a place like this for 3.5 weeks for £82, say £12 a week each. But at least half of these people have some of the cost paid by their trade union. The union subsidy varies up to a normal maximum of 70% of the cost. At that figure, £12 a week becomes £3.12. For nose, throat and chest troubles, a dutiful session of medicated steam. psychologically soothing. But as curative, I would think, as painting your mudguard yellow when your big end has gone. For young pioneers, health is not the only aim. They've done their exercises. Now, before breakfast, the day begins officially with a ceremony attended by all the 700 children in this camp, one of 23 pioneer camps in the Sochi area. They're going to hoist the Soviet flag. Every child from 10 to 15 must be a young pioneer. Section leaders make their morning report. The rules for young pioneers are read out. They're Boy Scoutish and admirable. There are good reasons for separate holidays for children. Mothers who must do a full day's work outside the home need an annual rest, and when school summer holidays last 3 months, young leisure has to be organized. Here it is beautifully organized to make children fit and happy and cooperative members of society. Essential and character-building work is a planned part of the routine. The children keep the big grounds tidy and do all the domestic work except cooking. But most of a long day, broken by 2 hours rest in the afternoon, is spent in healthy play. And the children love it all. But child health and parental ease are not the only aims of the young pioneer movement. A prime purpose is political indoctrination. These children aren't allowed to forget what kind of society they're growing up in. Posters everywhere include, among reminders of the virtues of work and sport and study, reminders of Soviet greatness. The parade ground is ringed with portraits of Russia's heroes of space exploration. A benign Papa Lenin beams approval and political reminder. And every adult camp leader belongs to the Komsomol, the young communists, who must be politically sound. Nobody with reservations is trusted with tomorrow's people. To Russians, all this seems only right and prudent. The Soviet siege mentality, just beginning to soften, is not without reason. And the grandparents of these children remember with gratitude the change wrought in the lives of ordinary people by 50 years of Soviet socialism. The parents of these children have seen victory in a war of dreadful bloodshed and destruction, and great industrial and scientific achievements and new cultural worlds open to all. No wonder they want their children to be made firm in the faith. The faith and life with purpose. One purpose, a Russian passion, is self-improvement. Not surprisingly, in a society where great education advances have ended centuries of ignorance and illiteracy. Adult excursions are not just for fun. The long walk through subtropical beauty is a succession of earnest lectures on botany. Practice guide, dutiful listeners. Dutiful listeners, practice guide. Young pioneers are visiting a tea plantation. If you didn't ask questions, it would be very easy to get the impression that all Soviet workers enjoy a holiday like this, with or without union help to the cost. Sochi's holiday chief told me that 40 in 100 workers are sent to resorts. Taking the lower figure of trade union members, 80 million, that would be 32 million people. But the official article I've mentioned says that only 8 million people visited the resorts last year. I believe that this is the true figure. If so, and if every citizen gets a fair chance of a holiday like this, he or she would get one every 10 years. But since it isn't uncommon for people to come here on successive years, there must be favoured selection by the unions. When I asked about this, I was told that 2 things are taken into account when trade unions decide who should go to a resort. One is health. The other is performance at work. It is official policy that in Soviet welfare provisions, priority should be given to people with good work records. I would confidently add another factor in selection: political status and behavior. Long holidays, cheap holidays, and mostly childless holidays. But like so many things in the Soviet Union today, holidays too are changing under the impact of a new social force that's going to create official headaches unknown in the days of struggle and scarcity. The new force is comparative affluence. Sochi's municipal beach shows one effect of it. Now that they can afford to do so, more and more people come here without union help and with their young children. This is why so many new hotels are going up. Unofficial, independent family holidays. Cars soon for better off ordinary citizens. The profit motive in industry and farming. Workers' incentive bonuses to raise efficiency. Profound changes, these. How far will they have gone? And what will life in the Soviet Union be like when these politically conditioned youngsters grow up?